I'm Midnight Agent Raw.
And I'm Okame.
We are the Super Media Bros podcast, and we are founding members of the Odd Pods Media Network. A temple with legends.
Ducks you give a fuck about.
Dystopian heaven.
All that and more.
Let's travel back to the 80s and the 90s, dude.
Get in your DeLorean.
Super Media Bros.
Back from that time traveling trip.
And psych, we didn't have a DeLorean.
No, we didn't have a DeLorean at all.
Well, we fooled you, didn't we?
We did. Because we're in the grid still, and we don't need that kind of shit to time travel. We can just push a button and go back in time.
We can will our minds to just go straight forward, or go backwards, or go sideways.
Just will it into existence. Welcome to episode 139 of the Super Media Bros podcast. I'm Midnight Agent Raw.
And I'm Okame.
Today, goddammit, we have a slew of shit to talk about. We have the 80s, the 90s, the beyond.
But first, the music.
We haven't talked about new releases from Monster Cat in a while.
Or just music in general that we actually thoroughly enjoy.
This is true.
We're going to talk about a few releases from Monster Cat that has come out in the last couple weeks, actually.
Yeah, and then a couple of rock songs.
Mainly on my end, I haven't been keeping up with Monster Cat on the simple fact that there hasn't been a lot of impactful releases over the last 2 months, 3 months. But here recently, they've been hitting pretty hard with the releases. On the Uncaged side, the ones that stand out the most to us, Full and Forgotten with Dystopia 2077, which is a really fucking good retro sounding vibe, and it's punchy as fuck.
Yeah, because we last talked about F.O.O.L on one of our For Your Reviewing Pleasure episodes, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was a great fucking EP.
Yeah, F.O.O.L has just been on point.
He's acting a fool.
Yeah, he's a little foolish. Other than that, there's Boss Fight and Philip Strand Voices, which, again, another artist that just never stops being awesome is Boss Fight.
Right, Boss Fight hasn't really put anything terrible out to me.
Another one is Soki, Sideways. I haven't been a big fan of Soki since the beginning of him being on Monster Cat, but this song definitely has a good vibe to it. I really dig this one a lot. But also on the Instinct side, we have quite a few. Smile and Just a Jam, which has actually been released today, Friday, with Revival, which we were talking about this before the episode started. Monster Cat has been releasing a lot of house-based tracks, kind of like a flood of them. I've noticed that they do a certain theme or certain genre for an extended period of time with every artist or a lot of the artists, and then they transition to another genre, which I think that's what we're doing right now.
Right.
Is transitioning back into house. So right now we're getting a plethora of great house tracks, which is one of them.
Yeah, and I was talking about this earlier whenever we were, prepping for this. I enjoy house music a lot, and it's nice to see it have a comeback on this channel because it's been a while.
And it's an odd combination between these two guys, which I'm for regardless, but Just a Gent is really good sound by himself. And then Smile, they just always awesome, have this funky vibe to them. Then they have Doomu, which again, it's one of those artists that's very hit or miss for me because either he knocks it out of the park or it's just another song to me. But this one is actually pretty good. It features a really good vocalist, Trove, Worst Part of Heaven. Then another really, I like Bad Computer a lot. And he's kind of been pretty stellar so far in the last couple months. Song called Truth, which has a really good vocal vibe to it with how they introduce the vocals into it. But yet again, another solid house track by him, which it's prog house at this point, not saying house particularly. But yeah, that's some of my noticeable ones here, unless you have any other Monster Cats.
No, dude, honestly, these were the same ones that stood out to me. The only other one I was, thinking about, which it was the other F.O.O.L release, which he's always put out really cool shit, but I'm really digging what he's doing now. I was telling Cody, and you guys out there should check this shit out if you haven't heard it yet. Last week, which it's going to be last week to you guys, but today, as we're recording this, Coheed and Cambria actually released a sequel to the Rick Springfield song Jesse's Girl, and it's called Jesse's Girl 2, and it features Rick Springfield in the third verse. And Coheed and Cambria have not lost their touch one bit. They're fucking still great. But the fact that Claudio Sanchez pitched this to Rick Springfield over an Instagram Live and they fucking made it happen. And the video is really cool too. And let's talk about the fact that Rick Springfield still looks as great as he does at 70 years old. Because Jesus, man, he doesn't look like he's aged very much. I mean, he's aged obviously, but he still looks great and he can still sing. It's a very top end track for me.
Oh yeah.
Because I don't think it's going to be on an album. And if it does wind up going on an album, maybe it'd be like a B-sides album or some shit. But god damn, it's a good song.
Oh, yeah.
And then surprise for me, you too, and hopefully you guys out there as well, any Deftones fans out there are going to notice that Deftones dropped their single Ohms last week, which is also the title of the upcoming album. They've been working on an album for the last few years, and they never disappoint to me. And I mean, especially since Diamond Eyes came out in 2010, they've been on a fucking roll. And I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of Ohms when it does drop.
Yeah, I mean, I'm digging what I'm hearing so far on that one track and can't wait to hear the rest of their stuff. It's definitely a great song to pick up along with Coheed and Cambria's the new fun track.
But that would be funny if they just called it New Fun Track.
With Daddy Rick.
Rick with Rick Daddy Springfield, our new fun track.
That should have been the name of the album if they make one.
And it's literally just a New Fun Track 1, New Fun Track 2. With Daddy Springfield, New Fun Track 3.
Yep. I'd stream it all the time.
And then whenever touring is able to come back into the fold, New Fun Tour, New Fun Tour 2, New Fun Tour Leg 3.
You guys want to have some new fun?
Let's do it.
Not some old fun, but new fun.
Exactly. Okay, before we get into the main event of this episode, we're going to take a small break and listen to a song called Washed in Blue by The Last Years.
I can't seem to find my way. I'm lost
we're going to get into the main event of the evening or morning or mid-afternoon, or whenever you guys are listening. We were just bullshitting when we were recording our last Cult Cinema Showdown episode because of a house that one of the characters resided in. We were looking at it and it seemed something like straight out of the 90s. And we felt like it was more of like a Nickelodeon looking house. And Cody brought up the great idea where he was just like, hey, what if we did an episode or we did a topic about Nickelodeon and Disney's programming from when we were growing up? And we kind of whittled it down to maybe the mid 80s, like 1985, 1988 to like 2002, because I don't know how you feel, but for me, I think 2002 is kind of when both channels dropped off a little bit.
What this episode is going to be consistent of is analyzing broadly, in a sense, because they're not going to go into detail about every fucking song or every fucking show on this, because that is going to take us like 2 hours.
No, we could probably spend like 2 to 3 hours doing a fucking deep dive just on one channel.
Right. But no, it's going to be analyzing as a broad spectrum, like the content and how much of a latch to our memories that it has up until now when we're in our mid 30s, and kind of go from there. And then comparing the two networks as to quality and just, I mean, longevity is like as far as like replayability, basically.
Yeah.
Which again, we're going to start with that part of it, like the mid 80s up until probably around like the mid 90s, when both of these started to become, in their own sense, giants of that era. Now, on one end, you have the animation side, and then on the other end, you have the live action side. To me, I think the only real topic of discussion that has like a huge impact would be the live action side, because if you really think about it, the animation on both sides, minus like a miss or two here and there, will really stellar on both ends.
Absolutely agree, dude, because Disney like had their own block of just really great releases throughout that decade. And Nickelodeon, I think for the most part, up until about the cutoff that we mentioned earlier, has had a pretty decent string of stuff come out. Like you said, a couple of hit or misses here and there.
Yeah. Like on the Disney side, just taking like a little bit of a broad look at everything, but you have like my favorite cartoon of all time, Darkwing Duck. You have Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. You have DuckTales. You have Gargoyles. I mean, I can go on about majority of these cartoons that came out. These were primetime Disney cartoons to me, because I can rewatch these. I can still remember a lot of the lines, a lot of the theme songs, a lot of the characters. I mean, even with like, I'm looking at a couple of these other ones like Bonkers and Mighty Ducks and a few others on here, Tailspin of all ones. Like, they weren't my favorites, but at the same time, I liked them enough to where I can recall them. It's like, oh yeah, I used to watch that show.
It's funny you mentioned Bonkers, dude, because if I'm not mistaken, it actually was preceded by Who Framed Roger Rabbit. There was a show called Raw Tunage, and that's where Bonkers was at one point. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head the other cartoons that were on it, but I remembered Bonkers from that show.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the other ones go, because I mean, like you had like your typical, Disney movie releases like Little Mermaid and Aladdin, and then those got turned into TV shows too. But we're really kind of looking at they're Disney originals, obviously, but you look at like Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. That's a great fucking show.
Mm-hmm.
You look at DuckTales. DuckTales is so good that they fucking rebooted it a few years ago.
And is it worthy? No, but it's still an idea that they try to bring up.
Right. And I think my favorite, and I'm hoping a lot of people's favorites out there too. Obviously, like we've mentioned, there's the Mighty Ducks cartoon. There was Recess when that came out. There was Kim Possible, which probably was one of the last good cartoons that Disney had done around maybe like 2000, 2002.
Yeah.
But for me, Gargoyles was my shit, because whenever I was in our video store, I think that's about where we sold the video store off, was right around that era. Because 1995 or some shit, we got a screener video in, and it was the Gargoyles movie. Before it was a series, it was like, oh, this is a movie. And I'm like, what the fuck? And technically, yes, it was a movie, but it was actually the first episodes of the series put together. And I fell in love with that shit, dude.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a great show because I feel like it had that edge to it. It was a kid's cartoon, but it definitely had some, older, like it had some like teenage adult themes running throughout the show. It had a little edge to it.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Like Gargoyles is more aimed towards like preteen to teen age groups, because it had the grit, it had the darkness. It didn't have a lot of comedy compared to a lot of the other cartoons that were on the same network. But there was some here and there to kind of break up the tension a little bit. But yeah, like it was still viewable for anybody of any age group, but I think it was more of like a preteen to teenage level, basically.
Right. Obviously, Darkwing Duck is something you would deep dive on completely.
Dude, when Disney Plus came out, that was like one of the first things I watched was Darkwing Duck over and over again. Like that's my jam. To me, it's like taking a silly form of Batman. It's fun. It's like DuckTales, but just a little bit darker. But I mean, I can't not watch this cartoon. It's so enjoyable. It's such a memory trip for me. Same with like Chippendale. Like we talked about it earlier. Like it's such a fucking great show. And both of these shows, I don't know. Well, I know DuckTales had it too. And I think Tailspin and a few others, but they actually had their own game spinoff too, which I played the shit out of on NES.
Oh yeah, you're talking about because I remember the purple cover, like it had the purple outing cover on it, or the outline on it, and I specifically remember having to carry like apples around whenever I would play that. It's a platforming game for those of you that haven't played it, and you're kind of missing out. It was actually a really good platforming game.
Oh yeah.
And I think a lot of people out there are going to agree with us on this one, that Goof Troop is probably one of the best cartoons that Disney ever fucking did. And I loved it because it had that father-son bonding thing, because, you know, Goofy's a single dad with his kid. And that wasn't really something a lot of shows did, was like the whole single parent thing, especially with like a father and their son. And that spawned, you know, a Goofy movie, which is one of the best Disney animated films that has ever come out. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. I fucks with that shit hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's got humor, it's got like emotional tones, it's got just everything under the sun.
It's got fucking Powerline.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't like Powerline?
We're going to explain this a little bit later, but there was a show that migrated to Disney from Nickelodeon.
And that was Doug.
I did not like the Disney version of Doug. I liked some of it, but it was too far off for me.
Yeah, I'm on the same fence about it. I didn't really care for the Disney side of things. I was more in beat with Doug when he was first originally created in the Nickelodeon side, which will basically transition into that side of it as we're talking about crossing over, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we can. Only thing I wanted to do before we left was kind of mention a couple of live action things from Disney. There was this show that I only caught a few episodes of, but I know a lot of people remembered. There was a show called So Weird, and it was kind of like an X-Files-y kind of show. And I would be lying if I said I could deep dive it, but I just remember catching a couple of episodes when I was younger and I liked it.
All right.
The Mickey Mouse Club from the 80s, which obviously I think a lot of us grew up on. Lizzie McGuire was a show that was kind of like the end of, to me, the end of the decent era of live action shit.
I actually tell you a live action that was really good and went completely to shit when it was remade was Boy Meets World.
Yeah, Boy Meets World was so fucking good. And then Girl Meets World came out and I was like, what the fuck, man?
I think that's a lot of the issues now is they're trying to remake classics and they don't need to on a lot of them. But this was one prime example. Like Boy Meets World was such a good growing up show. Like you literally just went through the phases of, you know, Corey going to high school and everything that he's dealt with. And then it just dropped off and closed off. And then they brought it back, but with them having kids. And it's like, no, you got to leave things where they stopped at, because you can't just bring nostalgia back and expect everybody to appreciate it the same way they did when they first originally brought it out. I appreciate what Disney did back when Boy Meets World came out, but not right now what they did with Girl Meets World. Yeah, and I mean, do we even talk about Saved by the Bell? Because I mean, that was technically like a retooling of Good Morning Miss Bliss, and that was that was a Disney Channel series. Yeah, but I mean, and Saved by the Bell is a pretty good show too. I remember growing up on that, and that being one of the first teen sitcoms I ever remembered watching, like on Disney. But like we said, we're not going to get like too deep into it, but basically just kind of appreciating what we grew up with and what you guys grew up with too. I remember dinosaurs very, very vividly. I think a lot of people remember dinosaurs because not the mama, but dude, come on. It was basically like a dinosaur versions of the Flintstones, if we're being honest. Or like a dinosaur version of Roseanne. Oh, dude, yeah, that is actually a very good comparison. And then there's Even Stevens. Even Stevens was pretty cool. I think a lot of people were surprised when Shia started taking on more of adult roles as he got older and the roles he went for. And, you know, because everybody's like, what the fuck happened? You know what I mean? He's not Shia no more. You know, he's definitely not shy. But yeah, if you want to like transition over to Nickelodeon, we can do that. Yeah, might as well, since we're kind of tapering off on Doug at least. Yeah, because I mean, there were other things. I remember some game shows on Disney, like they did a Mad Libs game show, but Nickelodeon had, I think, a
very big, well-rounded group of shows. And I would love to start back at the very beginning, which a lot of people don't remember that Nickelodeon started out as the Pinwheel Channel, and it became Nickelodeon, I think around like 79, 1980.
Yep.
One of the earliest shows that a lot of people seem to remember is You Can't Do That on Television. And when I say that is like OG Nickelodeon, that is fucking way to fuck back Nickelodeon. And I specifically remember that's the first place that you see the green slime.
And I really think Nickelodeon, the difference between them and Disney was Nickelodeon tried to push the boundary a little bit further. I think Disney stayed too cartoon, kid friendly or teen friendly or whatever to a degree. And I think Nickelodeon was like, well, you know what? That's starting to become stale and a little bit boring. So let's try and push it just a little bit more and see where we can get with it.
Right. And, you move on through the 80s and stuff because a lot of people that are going to, listen to this are probably more in tune with stuff from the late 80s into the 90s and maybe the early 2000s. And I think for that, everybody is going to resonate with the Nicktoons. Like we can start with the Nicktoons and then we can move to some of the live action stuff and the game shows and things like that, which the original Nicktoons lineup was Doug, Rugrats, and Ren and Stimpy. That was the original three before Rocko's Modern Life came along in like 1993, maybe.
And between me and you, Rocco, just prime.
Chef's kiss, man.
You can't go wrong because it's a cartoon that is depicting an adult life, like going to shit.
Oh, yeah.
But kids were watching this. So it's like, while we were younger at that age when it first came out, we didn't know what the hell was going on. We just liked the slapstick comedy and shit.
The jokes were going right over our fucking heads.
But now, as we watch it again, it's like, I can relate to that.
Oh my God, absolutely.
And surprisingly enough, Netflix revamped with a movie of Rocco to current times, and it did not miss a beat.
No, and I really enjoyed the fucking reboot of that. That's one of the few times that somebody got it right.
Yeah.
And it was because it was originally going to air on Nickelodeon, but they kept pushing it back for whatever reason. And Netflix was just like, hey, we'll fucking take it.
I think Nickelodeon was too busy playing reruns of SpongeBob to play this.
I'm not going to shit on SpongeBob because I do enjoy SpongeBob, but I really enjoy like the first 2 to 3 seasons, and then it falls off. Like after the movie comes out, for me, it falls off. And then here recently, before Hillenburg passed away, was actually doing pretty decent. I haven't kept up with it much, but I really like the older shit. Before that, Rugrats, Doug, Ren and Stimpy. Doug is probably one of the greatest cartoons that has ever been done.
It's not over the top. It's not edgy. It's not the slapstick comedy. It's just you being a preteen trying to go through normal preteen life. I mean, it's basically if you took Boy Meets World and animated in a sense, because
a little bit
the same concepts are there, because you have Doug, who they literally just moved into a town fresh off the bat, and the kid has to basically go to new school, meet new people, make new friends. He has a not a bitchy sister, but she's just weird, out of the blue kind of sister, basically.
She's the artsy kid.
Yeah,
and, to be honest, I'll tell you this right now. As I got older, I appreciated Judy Funny a whole hell of a lot more. Because at the time, I was like, oh man, she, like you said, she just seemed like that really bitchy ass sister. But whenever I got older, I was like, she's pretty cool. I would have hung out with her.
Yeah, definitely. And then, he was an artist that tried to take his ideas to life. And I mean, you got Quillman out of all that shit, which is really fucking awesome to me. So in a sense, yeah, it's like we grew up with Doug, basically.
Also, on the other side of that coin, when you watch Rugrats was absolutely the not that Doug didn't have that imaginative thing, because Doug always had his daydreams,
right?
Where he would catastrophize every little thing. But Rugrats, on the other hand, was kind of that really, it gave us that eyeball view from a baby perspective and the imaginative shit that they think of.
I mean, if you like over dramatize things in Doug's eyes, I mean, it's kind of the same thing with Rugrats, because they see, like, for example, a big hulking dog as like a huge threat. When you see it from our perspective, it's like, it's just a dog, just get the fuck away. But to them, it's like, wow, this is like a monster. This is a beast. How do we handle it? They imaginatively go through this adventure trying to tackle this obstacle to get something that's very minor to, our level, but to their level, it's like the hugest thing ever, like getting a baby bottle that they got tossed away, or a ball. Because I remember one of the first episodes that aired, I think Tommy lost his ball and he had to go literally across a backyard and across to another yard through a fence to get that ball back, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, because there was like a little, there was a plank in the fence that would move or something, something like that.
And it felt like such a huge, daunting thing from their perspective, but in reality, it was just a baby literally going like 20 feet away and coming back.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest part about it I loved is that you see it like we see it like that, but in their eyes, it's like a whole ass jungle quest to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of my favorite episodes was when Tommy and Chucky get locked inside of the toy store by accident because they swap places with dolls that look and fucking feel exactly like they do.
Yeah.
And then when they realize what they did, they shit bricks.
Yep.
And the whole time that's happening, you've got the whole Godzilla, I don't want to say rip off, but I mean, it kind of is, but like Reptar. They see the big fucking, and I love this and this kind of throwback because I think they knew what they were doing where they were like, let's throw some pop culture shit in here. So you had the big fucking Reptar doll get activated and because I think there was like a big fucking gorilla doll that gets activated and Chucky shits himself basically. He's just like, oh fuck. And Tommy's running up and he's like pounding on his fucking chest. He's like, Reptar, help us. And he fucking hits the button. So you have like Godzilla King Kong wrecking the toy store. Mm-hmm. So fucking great, dude. But I loved the dynamic of the families and shit. Because, I mean, even Angelica, okay? A lot of people are like, Angelica's a twat waffle.
I mean, yeah.
But I think Angelica's character is actually and it's it's not subtle, but I appreciate Angelica years later because I feel like that character is a byproduct of her parents. Like, her dad is just like, yes, man. He just falls over, so yes, man. But her mom is too fucking busy to pay attention to her.
Right.
So she acts out to get attention. And I think at the end of the day, Angelica does have heart. She's shown it several times, but I like the dynamic there.
Yeah. I agree. Even going a little bit further along, I mean, you have other cartoons like Our Monsters, Cat Dog, Thornberries, Hey Arnold,
Angry Beavers. I
mean, the list goes on. I mean, there's so many memorable cartoons from the Nickelodeon era up until now.
Invader Zim, dude.
Invader Zim is still a great, and they did that too on Netflix too. They revamped it.
It was a good movie too.
Yeah, like I said, we can go on and on about the animated side, but then you have the flip side of it, which is actually a two-parter for Nickelodeon because you have like the live action shows with like a drama or some kind of like teen interest, and then you have the game show side, which is its whole other beast. Because I want to say a couple of years back, quite a few years back, Nickelodeon split off into another channel called Gas.
Yeah, games and sports.
So they had Guts, they had Legends of the Hidden Temple, which is by far my favorite game show on the whole series, like this by far. Double Dare, I mean, you name it, like all of the game shows were compiled. Even like Nick Arcade was on there for a little while too. It was like early morning, if I'm not mistaken, when they played it. But yeah, you had like all these great game shows that played on there. And then you had like the live action dramas and little shows like, for example, Clarissa Explains It All, Adventures of Pete and Pete, The Amanda Show, Kenan and Kel, which is a spinoff from All That, which again is basically like SNL for kids.
I forgot about a cartoon before we move completely forward. Kablam.
Yeah, I mean, Kablam was like a compilation of different things because it was a cartoon, but it had like the claymation or the stop action animation as well with like the
Prometheus and Bob.
Yeah, but it was the Action Heroes Now.
Yeah, Action League Now.
Yeah, Action League Now. I couldn't think of it, but yeah, it was a really fun little show. I liked them too.
Yeah. And then like with the live action stuff, because you were talking about like the game shows and stuff like that, dude. Double Dare is, and it's because it's right up there with Legends of the Hidden Temple for me. But I think it's because I grew up on Double Dare. I was fascinated by the set pieces, the colors, the contraptions that they would come up with. Mark Summers as a fucking great host, and then because he moved on and did another show on there called What Would You Do? I don't know if you remembered that one or not.
I do.
That was fun because they had the whole, what was the chair they sat in? It was like the pie something.
Oh,
Do you know what I'm talking about? Where they
I
fucking
know.
sat in the chair and if they got shit wrong, they would just get fucking creamed with pies and all that shit.
I mean, speaking of that, you also have another game show, Figure It Out.
Yeah, Figure It Out was one of the last good game shows, honestly, dude.
Also, the host was just
Summer Sanders?
Yeah.
Summer Sanders was great, dude. Wild and Crazy Kids was another one.
Oh, that one, yeah.
I liked that one because I think it had like a little bit of Guts and Double Dare like kind of mixed together.
At like a camp, like a summer camp, yeah.
Which goes to like Salute Your Shorts because I know a couple of the people from Salute Your Shorts actually guested on Wild and Crazy Kids at one point as part of some of the teams.
Right. Now, we also have the Snick side of things too, which we name a few shows like that too, but we have
yes.
Are You Afraid of the Dark? I think outside of Tales from the Crypt, that was kind of like my go-to show for like the scary stories and stuff like that.
Dude, it still holds up.
Oh yeah.
And the original Snick lineup was actually Clarissa Explains It All, Roundhouse, Ren and Stimpy, and Are You Afraid of the Dark in that order. And it was so cool because you had the teen drama or the teen show,
Right.
which I still like Clarissa Explains It All to this day. It was a fun, quirky little show. Roundhouse was actually technically, I think, one of the more, it was a precursor to all that because Roundhouse did sketch comedy, but all the sketch comedy in the said episode would wrap itself up by the end. And then they would have dance breaks, music guests, things like that. And then Ren and Stimpy, obviously, like Ren and Stimpy is just one of those cartoons that is highly influential on, I think, everybody's gross out humor of today's settings. Yeah. But Are You Afraid of the Dark, getting to that, shit, dude. Are You Afraid of the Dark is absolutely one of the greatest live action, especially for that era. And it came from Canada, of all places. It was really good horror, you know, and it was not too like gory or scary, but dude, it was scary enough.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff still kind of creeps me out a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up just watching like all three spectrums of horror back in the day. Like, yeah, Tales from the Crypt, like I said, which is the high end kind of horror back in the day. And then you have the low end, which is like Goosebumps, which is, you know, corny and a little bit scary here and there, but not too much. Are You Afraid of Dark was like just kind of smack dab in the middle between the two.
Yeah, that was a really good medium as far as, okay, we're a kid's show, but we're still going to fucking frighten the pants off of you, or we're going to scare the shit out of you, basically.
And that's why we play at 10 o'clock at night.
Make sure the kiddies are asleep.
Yeah. Or not asleep. It's up to you.
Dude, you know what fucked up, man? Like, I always waited on something to happen, and I know it sounds fucked up. Why don't they like fucking threw that dust and they're just like, you know, submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society? I call the store and they throw this shit in there and just fucking... Well, there goes camp.
Yep.
And there goes the forest. Oh, there went my friends.
There's Jason coming out of the lake.
Fucking... Are You Afraid of Camp Crystal Lake?
It's a good little spinoff.
It'd be fucked up, dude. Seriously, though, man. You know, growing up, that was like the quintessential time for me for Nickelodeon. Because as like the years went along, it was just, you know, it was kind of hit or miss. I mean, you had Nick Jr., like before Nick Jr. kind of got, you know, what it is today.
Yeah.
You had shit like Eureka's Castle and David the Gnome, you know, things like that were fucking great. Eureka's Castle was so fun.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember Wienerville?
I do.
Dude, you want to hear something crazy about Wienerville? Okay, so like a lot of, I've seen, because we tweeted out, you know, to hit us with some of your favorite shows from both channels. Somebody replied, they were just like, you know, the lack of people mentioning Wienerville astounds me. And the weird thing about that show is Nickelodeon actually canceled it because it wasn't edgy and they were trying to move to a like edgier product. And they were like, puppets are just not going to fit in. So I don't know, man. It was a weird show, but I loved it.
This is going to really sound kind of weird to me, to everybody else as well. But like the only two kids friendly show, like the Nick Jr. kind of side of things, was Lazy Town and Blue's Clues.
Yeah, Blue's Clues was a lot of fun too, man.
Early Blue's Clues, by the way. Like when Steve was still part of Blue's Clues.
I'm Steve. You've got mail.
Yeah.
He was... Steve was like the human version of AOL every fucking time. We've got a letter, Blue.
You just got a letter.
You've got mail. Oh, cool. Thanks.
Thanks, AOL.
I really liked Blue's Clues a lot too. And it was weird because that was around the time whenever they were doing Face, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they had like Nick in the Afternoon was another block that I really enjoyed with Stick Stickly.
Yep.
That was a lot of fun too.
Secret World of Alex Mack.
Yeah, I was going to say there's Secret World of Alex Mack with live action stuff.
Hey, dude.
It was weird to me as a kid, but I appreciated it. It was just something that I was like, okay, it's a cowboy setting. It's a dude ranch setting. Like, what the fuck's going on, you know? Dude, oh man, we can't fucking leave a couple of these off. Welcome Freshman. I don't know if you remember Welcome Freshman, but I loved that fucking show.
Oh yeah, I definitely remember it.
Welcome Freshman was kind of, in my eyes, it was almost like Nickelodeon's version of Saved by the Bell a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget like the show. There's this, I can't remember the character's name and I feel stupid, but like the one kid I remember seeing the promos for, he would be up in the basketball hoop, like sat in it, like the bullies just fucking like yeeted him up into the fucking basketball hoop, and the principal would be like, you know, come down from there, and he's just like, I fucking can't. Like, you piece of shit. I got tossed up here by Brock and his fucking friends on the fucking football team. You son of a bitch, I can't get down from here. The fuck is wrong with you? I'd like to talk about Alex Mack a little bit.
Yeah.
Because technically Alex Mack, I want to say, was replacing the front end of the SNCC lineup, because the SNCC lineup changed over the years. And I think Alex Mack wound up going to SNCC, and it was kind of looked at as Clarissa's replacement. But Alex Mack was a really quirky show, and I liked it a lot too, where she get like fucking doused in chemicals and she can all of a sudden like shapeshift and all this crap.
Yeah. It was more like a supernatural like teen show.
A little bit. And because I remember the graphics back then, you know, like we were just getting into television, like let's put some CGI on television. And this was the 90s. So everything looked like a fucking Capri Sun commercial on that show.
Well, I mean, if you want to go that route, I mean, they had Animorphs too. Because they did the exact same shit too. Like they had that weird, like it's distinctive transitioning with the CGI. Like it was like just almost like freeze framing, but then they kind of melded it together as they transformed.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I feel like, oh, dude, The Adventures of Pete and Pete.
Yeah, we had mentioned that earlier, which I mean, it's you kind of go off the same topic as a Goofy Movie and stuff and Goof Troop. Like it's a bonding experience between two brothers, but in a very quirky like scenario in a way, because you have like an older brother who's like, I think he's in high school, and then the younger brother who's like in middle school. And while they're doing their own little adventures, like they eventually come together at the end. It's like, oh yeah, well this happened basically.
And I remember Danny Tamborelli, who played the younger Pete, he wound up going on to all that as a cast member. And I think he was a prominent member on Figure It Out. He was a prominent panelist on that show.
He was always the third panelist because it was him and Lori Beth Denberg. They were the last two panelists. Like the first two, I think, were like either like a special guest, like somebody outside of Nickelodeon, or somebody from all that cast member, basically.
Yeah, I remember Keenan being on there a couple of times. Actually, I remember Keenan and Kel being on Figure It Out a few times. And Keenan and Kel was just a great fucking live action show too. Like while we're kind of talking about it, I remember that being, I think for me was at that age being kind of peak live action, because I thought like, you can't really get much better than this as a live show.
But I think like out of all that, Keenan and Kel literally were the shining stars of that whole entire timeline, because they spawned a couple of, like, I think they have Good Burger, which was a main movie. Kenan and Thompson went on to Saturday Night Live, and just they literally took off from all that after that point.
Yeah. And I mean, I think to a certain degree, Amanda Bynes would have too, but I mean, I don't want to get into like a lot of her issues that she dealt with, but she had a lot of personal issues and a lot of problems that kind of, took that away from her.
Right.
And, I think that a lot of that had to do with the fact that, a lot was expected of her, because they kind of get looked at as they have a lot to live up to.
Well, I mean, you see the success of one person and they're like, okay, you have to keep that going. And they're like, I don't feel like doing this. I can't mentally do this. And they're like, nope, you signed a contract.
Right. Do you want to get into some more of the other game shows? Like we can kind of, not deep dive, but we can kind of go into Temple and Nick Arcade and Guts a little bit.
I mean, Legends of the Hidden Temple, like how can you go wrong with that show? Like it's so fucking fun to be in this like jungle setting with doing these, games and stuff like that. And then you had the main quest was to navigate this temple to where you had to find, I think it was like 2 or 3 tokens, if I'm not mistaken, and bring them. No, it wasn't a token. It was like the main treasure, basically. I'm sorry. But the cool thing about it was you had like these temple guards that would literally like kidnap you if you get into the wrong room. And it was kind of like a scare factor in a way, if you really think about it.
Dude, I remember being a kid and wanting to go on Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Same.
No. Do you know the reason I wanted to go on the fucking Legends of the Hidden Temple?
No.
I wanted to get into the temple and fucking kick one of those fuckers in the dick if they tried to take me. Just fucking kick them right in the nuts and be like, fuck you. I'm building this monkey in the Shrine of the Silver Monkey. I'm getting the main treasure.
That's probably why you see them like hold their hands up like, don't hit me, don't hit me. I'm trying to like just get you out of here.
Yeah, because you look at them and it looks like, oh, they come out and they're like, boo. They throw their hands up, boo.
Well, you probably see like a lot of these kid contestants like raring up to hit them. I'm like, no, don't hit. I'm just here to get you out.
Yeah, they just walk up and they're just like, I'm going to right in the fucking face. Oh, just falls the fuck over.
That's my token, bitch.
Right. And then like the temple guard sinks into the foam bricks that they have on the floor. Because, dude, it had to be like walking in quicksand in a lot of those levels, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Because I saw these kids struggling. And I know every one of you motherfuckers out there listening right now that watch this show, we're watching these kids run through this temple thinking to yourself, you fucking pussy, I could do better than you. And if you say no, you're a fucking liar. Because
I did that shit.
Yeah, we were all fucking sitting there just like, bitch, you can't make it through this fucking temple. Come on, I'd have just boom, I'd have ran right up that shit.
But yeah, another great show, like you mentioned, was Guts. that was the flashy lights, sports based, game show basically. Because you had Mike O'Malley with his like just raw, and it's like, I'm Mike O'Malley, and this is Nickelodeon Guts.
And that was the better game show he hosted because he did another one called Get the Picture.
Yeah.
But when Nickelodeon Guts came out, it was so fucking cool. Like the theme music was cool. Maura Quirk was fucking cool. And the fucking aggro crag. And I love that they went from just Nickelodeon Guts and then they got bigger and called it Global Guts. And they started taking people in from all over the fucking world.
It's kind of like Ninja Warrior for kids.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, one of the harder looking games was the low gravity one where they were running sideways on that path. And they had to like jump around like the edge of it. They run back the other way.
Oh, fuck that shit.
Yeah, they were like on a high wire or some kind of like cable system. And they literally had to run sideways all the way around this like rectangular track. And it was really fucking hard looking at it because it's like, I don't know if I can do that. But at the same time, it was pretty cool.
Double Dare was a show that I really, really, really wanted to be on. I know we mentioned it way at the top of the show or whatever, but goddamn, dude, like the show that had Double Dare, then it had fucking Family Double Dare, then it had Super Sloppy Double Dare, and then it had Super Special Double Dare, then it had Double Dare 2000, and then just in 2018, a fucking Double Dare revival with Mark Summers. You can't tell me this show didn't have a fan base. They fucking did it so many times. And I mean, even Legends of the Hidden Temple to the point they made a fucking movie. We need you to do a movie. How? I'm fucking stoned.
I'm stoned right
Yeah, I was
now.
about to say, I'm fucking stoned. Wait, don't fucking drop him. Shit, cancel it. He just fucking falls on his face and it just breaks.
It's like moving a priceless painting into the Louvre and you just drop it on the floor. Like, well, shit.
The Louvre of the silver. Fuck.
I would love to see like Olmec's prosthetic face or whatever you want to call it, that whole setup just brought into the Louvre. It's like, yeah, this is world-class art.
Yes, it is. It fucking is. And don't anybody out there don't fucking deny it. It is world-class as fuck. It needs to go next to the giant fucking nose that you had to dig the slime out of for the flag in Double Dare.
Yep.
Put Old Mac and the big fucking nose right next to each other.
I would go visit Paris just for that.
Yo, dude, right? I kind of want to wrap up a little bit. I'm sad that they closed the old Nickelodeon Studios lot in Orlando.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, fuck, that's just the death of my childhood. Disney's still doing great, though. I mean, obviously, with the fucking acquisition of like Marvel and all that crap.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going down anytime soon.
Nickelodeon did a bunch of weird shit where they had there was like a Nicktoons hotel or some shit.
I mean, that's where the similarities are, I guess. Like where Disney faltered, Nickelodeon picked up, and then wherever Nickelodeon faltered, Disney picked up. It's like they're kind of like the two sides of the coin if you really think about it. Because we were talking about earlier, like where the differences are between these two icons. To me, I think the biggest difference is the live action. Mainly because there is so much diversity and impact with the Nickelodeon side that I can still recall, like we just did for the last like 20 minutes, all of the game shows, all of the live action stuff, all of that, Kenan and Kel, all that other shit. And with Disney, it's like, yeah, there were some decent stuff, but nothing that impactful. Even now, to this day, there is still a consistent train of live action on both ends coming out, but the quality they're literally the same thing if you really think about it, because production's still the same, quality is still the same, and just overall interest is the same. Is shit.
Yeah, I mean, even so much to the point that I know for a fact, I think one of the more recent Disney cartoons that come out that I actually enjoy is Gravity Falls. That's a really good show. To the point now, Nickelodeon is actually about to relaunch and a reboot of the Rugrats cartoon. So they're going to be doing a Rugrats relaunch in 2021. And Patrick Starr is getting his own cartoon. So like they're trying to dig back to what, brought them to the dance in the first place. Yeah. And, you got Nickelodeon and you got Disney, who obviously they did like a DuckTales reboot and things like that, but they still show they have potential with stuff like Gravity Falls, because that's a pretty decent show.
Yeah. But like, if you want to get to the nitty gritty of this episode, it's like I said, if you want to consider who had the bigger impact and the stronger source of content, I think, in my opinion, was Nickelodeon.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people out there really going to be pissed about that, because I know people that are hardcore Disney people that grew up on Disney, and that was their shit. And that's fine. But it's not just because I grew up on Nickelodeon more so than Disney. Because, I mean, there's a lot of Disney stuff that I have memories of. But as far as keeping my attention, Nickelodeon fucking won by a landslide for me as a child.
Yeah. And we can't really be biased because, like you said, we didn't primarily grow up on Nickelodeon. We grew up on Disney, Nickelodeon, WB, and Cartoon Network, and all these other, content creators. But those two stuck out the most because of what they brought to the table as far as like a mass amount of shows. Now, like I said, I have fonder memories of Nickelodeon as a whole, mainly because I remember growing up with like Rocko's Modern Life and Doug and all that, and Are You Afraid of the Dark, and just watching these shows, the live action shows of like Hey Dude, Salute You Shorts, and stuff like that. Compared to Disney, Disney seemed to have like this one formula, this one equation, and they stuck with it. And sometimes it worked, but a lot of times it didn't, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Nickelodeon thought more outside of the box.
Right. And that's what I talked about earlier, was me basically saying Disney kept with this family friendly, we won't break this boundary because this is what our standards are. And Nickelodeon's like, no, we need to do more than that. We have to go above and beyond that. And that's what they did.
Fuck that.
Yeah. So, I mean, they punched the wall. They're like, fuck it, we're doing this.
Monster Energy Kyle Disney just punches the wall.
Yeah. So, like I said, I mean, to me, the clear kingpin of late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s, roughly, was the Nickelodeon era.
Sure, yeah. Even then, and I feel like maybe just based on the response we had on our tweet on at @SuperMediaBros_ on Twitter, a lot of the people, when we asked you, hit us with your favorite Nickelodeon and Disney stuff from 1988 to 2002, a majority of the responses were Nickelodeon branded programming.
Right.
I mean, we had GIFs and responses, just single person responses with multiple fucking show names in their tweet. And then that's not to say that Disney is without its fans or anything like that, but damn, I agree with Cody. Like, I think the kingpin of the fucking 90s, at least the 90s, was Nickelodeon. Abso-fucking-lutely.
Mm-hmm. Now, as far as right now, they're both kind of equal when it comes to, decency, because on one end, Nickelodeon is just replaying SpongeBob reruns all fucking day, because every time I put on Nickelodeon, that's all I fucking see. And Disney is just a bunch of this live action teen shit that I have no idea why it's still airing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the substance it feels like a lot of the substance is gone, and it doesn't hold the weight or the punch that, and I'm speaking on both channels right now, it doesn't hold the impact it used to.
No.
And I think that's why when people talk about nostalgia and people are all about what came before, it's not like, oh, we're trying to relive our glory days. It's just the fact that we long for good programming again. You can go back and watch all this shit, but I think a big deal would be if they're producing newer shit that had just as much impact or was as good as the other shit that we used to watch growing up on.
And if I'm going to be honest, I think right around when 2000 hit is when I transitioned to Cartoon Network, honestly.
Same. And, there's a reason we didn't bring Cartoon Network into this conversation, is because of the fact that we could really do an entire podcast on Cartoon Network's programming.
Which is we could do that. We will do that more than likely. But I think right now was to, like I said, reanalyze what brought us into the cartoon era and the live action show era for kids back when we were kids.
Right. And a lot of you out there are probably in the age range of maybe you're 27 to maybe even 40, 42, 45 years old, because we all in that span of an age group as we are now grew up on different decades of Nickelodeon and Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, if you think about, we said, the top of this, Nickelodeon spans back to 79. Disney spans back even further than that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the fucking Mickey Mouse cartoons and all the fucking Disney characters, the main staple Disney characters, they've been 30s and 40s.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, Disney has the longevity, obviously, at this point. But I think that Nickelodeon had that one just good hit on Disney to you can't rule this era. Yeah, just for the sheer 80s 90s era, definitely Nickelodeon has the bag on that one. And again, it's not to put anybody down that watches Disney, because if you like Disney, fuck yeah, that's your jam. Fucking do it. Yeah, because we mentioned earlier, there's so many Disney shows that we appreciate that we had to mention earlier. There's no there's a good amount of content on their channel in that time era to appreciate. So if you like Disney, by all means, like Disney. We like Disney too, to a certain degree. That's really all we can say about that.
Right. And I guess kind of, I want to throw like a good, did you know, which I think a lot of you might know this, but this is kind of a good like cap off for this one. We'll be talking about Cartoon Network on a future episode for sure. But did you know at one point, Adventure Time was pitched to Nickelodeon and they fucking turned it down?
And look what happened.
Yeah.
That thing took off like a fucking rocket. And that's one of my favorite cartoons now.
Same. Like that and regular show. But that's for another podcast entirely.
Mm-hmm. So, like I said, to repeat, clear winner is obviously Nickelodeon in that era.
That's the splat of the slime.
Mm-hmm. Or the gack.
Oh my God. Yeah. And that's another thing we kind of glossed over, all the fucking tie-in merchandise with Nickelodeon with all the gack and the slime and all that shit.
What was that foam shit that they made? Floam. That's right. Because it was like that beady looking like slime shit.
Yeah. Because you could mold it and it would stay.
Yeah.
So
mine always dried up. It always stayed permanent in one spot.
Oh.
Yeah.
Check out supermediabrospodcast.com to listen to past, present, and future episodes. Buy some merchandise.
See, now at this point, we need our own gack.
Dude, Super Media Bros gack.
Yeah, and it's like black gack with the logo and you just like twisted and molded and shit.
Super Media Floam.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, let's do that. Super Media Floam in the works right now.
Buy it now so it can dry up later.
Buy it now, dry it later.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Especially in this fucking August heat that we're living in, at least in the South.
Mm-hmm. Coffee.com.
Mm-hmm.
Donate to us monetarily if you please. Or if you want to. I don't care what you do.
Give us the fucking energy.
Give us the money we need to buy the energy drinks and coffee to get us through this fucking show. Besides, next month we're going to need all the coffee we can muster because we are going to tackle the Death Wish franchise, including the ripoff Death Kiss and the Bruce Willis remake Death Wish. We're going to kick that off with a Cult Cinema showdown of, yes, we're doing some sequels before we get to the OG, but anybody who's anybody has seen the original Death Wish. So we're going to kick off with Death Wish 2 versus Death Wish 3. And then that will go on. That will go on to face the winner of Death Wish 4 versus Death Wish 5.
You guys already know. Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, it's a fucking tournament.
Yeah.
But we're going to dedicate an entire episode to Death Wish and the Death Wish remake.
All while we're doing that, drinking Death Wish coffee.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
That's going to be some tasty fucking beverages.
Mm-hmm. I've already had it before, so I know we're in for a good time.
Oh, same. And yeah. Until next week, I've been Midnight Agent Raw.
And I'm Okame.
Shades on.
We're off.